Football has tried to end Cristiano Ronaldo's career at least 9 times. Nobody asked him if it was okay. There is a simple version of this story. It ends in 2006. A wink, a red card that wasn't even his fault, and a whole country deciding in 1 second that they hate him. A clean ending. The bad guy walks away. The end. But there is another ending too. One in a Piers Morgan interview, and one on a plastic bench in Qatar with his face in his hands while the cameras keep filming. There are about 9 good places where this story could have ended. The problem is simple. He keeps coming back for a 10th try. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to try to find the real ending, the one this story deserves. And every time we get close, he's going to make us hit record one more time. Let's start with the villain. Portugal against England, World Cup quarterfinal, 2006. In the 60th minute, Ronaldo's own Manchester United teammate, Wayne Rooney, stamps on a Portuguese player and gets sent off. The cameras catch Ronaldo turning to his bench and winking. Half a second of video. The British newspapers turn it into 10 years of hate before breakfast. Portugal win the penalty shootout. Ronaldo scores the final penalty himself. 2 Manchester United teammates fly home to England as enemies. So that's the ending, right? The arrogant kid. The traitor. Chased out of English football before he even got started. It wasn't the ending. Almost 20 years later, on his own podcast, Rooney finally tells the truth about that night. He says he spoke to Ronaldo right after the game, in the tunnel, and there was no problem at all. He just wished him good luck for the semi-final. No anger. No war. And here's the part nobody in England wanted to hear. Rooney admits that during the match. He was actually trying to get Ronaldo a yellow card. On the pitch, they were enemies. The second the game ended, it was over. What 40 million people saw as betrayal, the players in the locker room just saw as normal competition. Ronaldo went back to Manchester. He faced the angriest crowd of his life. And he did the one thing nobody expected. He didn't say sorry. He didn't explain himself. He just won the league. Remember that move. It's really the only move he has. And he's going to make it again and again for the next 20 years. By 2008, the wink is forgotten. He wins the Champions League in the rain in Moscow. He wins his first Ballon d'Or, the award for best player in the world. At just 23 years old, there's no better footballer alive and no argument about it. So, happy ending, right? The villain becomes the king of his own house. It wasn't the ending. He leaves. Real Madrid pay a world record amount of money for him, over £80 million. Sir Alex Ferguson, the man who helped build him into a star, lets him go. For the next 10 years, Ronaldo isn't really playing against other defenders. He's playing against a man who is never in the room, but never really leaves either, Lionel Messi. Every award Messi wins becomes a deadline for Ronaldo. Too selfish. Too focused on trophies with his own name on them. Not a real Madrid player, the way Messi is a real Barcelona player. He's scoring 60 goals a season, and people are still telling him what he isn't. Then, in the summer of 2016, football finds an even crueler way to end the story. Portugal have never won a major trophy. Not once, in their entire history. The European Championship final against France is supposed to be the night everything changes. Their captain, in a final, right at his peak. 8 minutes in, he chases a loose ball, crashes into another player, and his knee bends in a way knees are not supposed to bend. He tries to keep playing. He can't. By the 25th minute, he's being carried off the field on a stretcher, crying, while the cameras stay on his face the whole painful time. That's the ending. Anyone can see it. Their one chance at history, gone, and their best player is now just a spectator in a tracksuit. It wasn't the ending. He refuses to leave. Next comes the decline everyone had been waiting for. In April 2018, he scores a goal so amazing, an overhead kick from the edge of the box, that even the fans of the other team, Juventus, stand up and applaud him. A few weeks later, he signs for that same team, Juventus, for over €100 million. He is 33 years old. And the judgment comes fast. Too old, just chasing money in a weaker league. This is the beginning of the end, people say. He wins league titles in Italy, but he can't go far in the Champions League anymore. Quarterfinal out. Some people say he's no longer the greatest. Just an aging legend, carrying a brand instead of a team. It wasn't the ending. In 2021, he does the most dangerous thing a legend can do. He goes home. Manchester United bring him back. 12 years after leaving for Madrid, he walks out at Old Trafford again. At 37 years old, he signs for Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia, and European newspapers write the sentence they'd been preparing for years. This is retirement. Retirement with a paycheck. The end, in everything but name. That's the ending. 2 summers later, at the Euros again. Extra time against Slovenia. A 39-year-old Ronaldo, still with no goal in the tournament, wins a penalty and steps up to take it himself. The goalkeeper guesses right and saves it. Ronaldo breaks down right there on the field, in front of the whole world, with his teammates holding him up and his mother crying in the stands. Then he steps up again in the penalty shootout, same spot, same pressure. Just minutes after the worst miss of his life, and scores. He later explains that the tears weren't about feeling sorry for himself. They were about the weight of still carrying all of this, at an age when everyone he started his career with has already retired. Then, a year later, comes the answer to everything. June 2025. In Munich, the Nations League final. Portugal against Spain again, the reigning European champions. Ronaldo, now 40 years old, ties the game in the 61st minute with a classic striker's finish. It's his 138th goal for Portugal. Nobody in the history of football has ever scored more goals for their country than that. Then, late in the game, injured and tired, he comes off and watches the shootout and the trophy celebration from the sideline. Just like in 2016, Portugal win it on penalties. Their captain, unable to be on the field for the biggest moment, wins the trophy anyway. He says afterward that these are tears of joy. The job is done, and there's so much happiness in it. Hold on to that night, because there's one more thing about it that nobody watching could have known at the time. It was the last trophy his teammate Diogo Jota would ever win. 25 days later, Jota died in a car accident, along with his brother. Remember that detail, it's going to come back. The man who was supposedly retiring becomes the top scorer in Saudi Arabia, then the top scorer again. In February 2026, he does something no footballer in history has ever done. He scores his 500th goal after turning 30 years old. Read that again. Not 500 career goals total. 500 goals scored after his 30th birthday. He scored 463 goals before turning 30, and more than 500 after, meaning he scored more goals during what people called his decline than most players score in their entire career. He becomes the first active footballer ever to appear on a billionaires list at 41 years old. And somehow, he's still the captain of Portugal. Which is how he ends up in North America, playing in his 6th World Cup, one he has already called, out loud, his last. In the round of 32, Croatia scores first, through Ivan Perry. Portugal's backs are against the wall, and the story seems to be setting up for one more sad, perfect ending. 68th minute. Portugal win a penalty. A 41-year-old walks up and scores it, becoming the oldest player ever to score in a World Cup knockout match. It also ends a scoring drought that had followed him across 6 World Cups and 20 years. His very first goal in a World Cup knockout game. All in one kick. He's taken off in the 81st minute, and the winning goal comes in stoppage time from Gonzalo Ramos, the same young player who took his place back in 2022. Portugal win, 2-1. When it's over, Ronaldo holds up a jersey for the team photo. Number 21. Diogo Jota. The teammate he had celebrated a trophy with 1 year earlier. The oldest man on the field, carrying the memory of the youngest one gone. Portugal moved on to play Spain, their Iberian neighbors, the reigning European champions, in the round of 16 in Dallas. On the eve of the match, a reporter asked him, again, if this was the end. He gave the answer he always gives. "It is my last World Cup," he said. "I hope tomorrow won't be my last match." Even now, he wouldn't let anyone else write it. And then, for once, the pattern didn't save him. It was a hot, sticky afternoon in Texas, and for a while it looked like it might bend his way, the way it always somehow had. Twice he forced a save out of Unai Sin, Spain's goalkeeper, who kept picking the story up off the ground and setting it back down where it started. Portugal rattled the crossbar. Spain spurned an open goal of their own. The game refused to end the way this man's story always refuses to end. And then, it just ended. 91st minute. A substitute named Mikel Merino, 6 minutes on the pitch, ghosted in behind a tired defense and finished low past Diogo Costa. 1-0. There was no time left to answer. And for the first time in 20 years, there was no next match to reach for. Here is the cruel detail, the one his critics will keep and his fans will try to forget. He touched the ball 19 times in the entire game. 19. The fewest of any World Cup match he has ever played. And this time, unlike Qatar in 2022, nobody took him off. His coach left him on the field to the final whistle every minute, the armband. His last World Cup to do with as he pleased, and it still wasn't enough. Gonzalo Ramos, the young man who had saved them against Croatia, never left the bench. In 2022, they dropped him, and it broke his heart. In 2026, they gave him everything, and the ending came anyway. Which means that, for the very first time, the ending was his. So that's it. The real one. Everyone agrees now, and this time the people who love him agree too. No stretcher, no red card, no wink, no war, no injustice to rage against. Just a great player, at 41 in a game his team lost to a better side, walking off a pitch in Texas for the last time. And here is what he did. He didn't collapse. He didn't rage. There were tears, of course there were, 23 years of them, and then he wiped them, raised a hand to the crowd, and said the strangest thing a man who has just lost can say. "I leave with a clear conscience. I gave everything I had. It was my last World Cup, but the rest, I'll decide with my family, not in the heat of the moment." Read that again. The world finally wrote his ending, in stoppage time, in Dallas, off a substitute's boot, and in the very same breath, he picked the pen back up. His last World Cup? Yes, that book is shut, and even he won't reopen it. His last match for Portugal, his last game anywhere? I'll decide. 19 touches against Spain. 1 knockout goal in 6 World Cups and 20 years of trying. 41 years old, and still the only person on earth allowed to write his final line is him. That night, his coach resigned. The era ended for everyone but the one man it was named after. So let's count them all. The villain, 2006. Starting over in Spain, 2009, never a Real Madrid player. Fading at Juventus. Pushed out of his childhood club with nowhere left to go. Benched at the lowest point of his World Cup career. Broken in tears in France, and again in Germany, in front of the entire world. And now Dallas. That's 10 endings. 9 of them were written by someone else, and every one of those 9, he tore up and threw back. Only this last one is different. Because nobody dropped him. Nobody chased him out. Nobody robbed him. He played every minute they would give him, and when it was over, he was the one who decided what it meant. Clear conscience. Done his, and here's the thing this story was never going to be able to do. Hand you a clean ending. Because the ending was never a trophy, or a stat, or a retirement post, or a final whistle. 9 times the world tried to write the last line of Cristiano Ronaldo, the first man in history to score at 6 different World Cups, and 9 times he took the pen back. Not with an interview. Not with an apology. Not with a comeback speech. With the next match. This 10th time, at the World Cup, there is no next match. That door is closed, and he closed it himself dry-eyed, on his own terms, with a clear conscience. But look at what he still won't tell you. Whether that was his last game for Portugal, whether he's finished, whether the story is over. He says he'll decide. Of course he does. He has never once let anyone else hold the pen.